Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. This time, we're taking a look at a story that really shows how career paths, aren't always a straight line.
Right.
We're diving into excerpts from David Lavender and the story of Daven Electric Corp. This guy's journey,
Yeah.
it's pretty amazing. I mean, have you ever thought about just like completely switching careers?
Oh, yeah.
Because David Lavender went from being a Wall Street financier to an electrical contractor.
Now, that's not something you see every day. It's not exactly the typical career move, is it? I mean,
Yeah.
we're talking about a licensed managing director, chief investment banker,
Yeah.
partner in a brokerage firm. That's the kind of resume that usually means you're spending your days in, like high rises in boardrooms,
Right.
not, wearing hard hats and looking at wiring diagrams.
You'd think someone like him would be way more comfortable, like analyzing the stock market or whatever than they would be like
Right.
troubleshooting a busted circuit breaker.
Yeah. Like, what is going on with this thing?
Exactly. But honestly, that's what makes this whole deep dive so interesting. Daven Electric Corp, the company that he built, it's incredibly successful. And I have a feeling
Oh, yeah.
that there are some pretty surprising connections between his background in finance and what he's doing now.
Absolutely. I mean, think about it for a second. Wall Street, is all about assessing risk, managing investments,
Right.
understanding really complex systems. And those skills honestly translate really well to the world of electrical contracting,
Yeah.
especially when you're dealing with big projects and clients who, expect a lot.
So picture this. You're David Lavender. You've spent years in this super high pressure world of finance, and then suddenly you decide to leave it all behind to start an electrical contracting business.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think was the thing that pushed him to make that kind of decision?
I don't think it was just about wanting to make more money.
Yeah.
I think it shows something a lot deeper, like a real passion for the work, a need to build something real and tangible. Maybe he was tired of spreadsheets and wanted to work with something you can actually touch and see.
Right.
The electrical systems that power like everything.
That's such a good point. It's like a reminder that success, it's not always a straight line.
Yeah.
And sometimes the best path is the one less traveled. But let's be real, building a successful company from nothing in a field that's as competitive as electrical contracting,
Right.
you need more than passion.
Right.
Like-
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You need a solid foundation.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably where Lavender's experience on Wall Street really helped him.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're used to dealing with millions of dollars, securing funding and putting together a solid business plan for a contracting company probably feels pretty familiar.
That makes a lot of sense. So he had the passion, he had the business smarts, but what about the actual hands-on work?
Right.
How did he go from finance to knowing the technical side of electrical contracting?
I mean, we don't know all the details, but it's safe to say he either knew something about it already or he invested a lot in training
Yeah.
and building a team of skilled electricians. And that's where I think those core principles of Daven Electric come into play: quality, communication, and value.
Okay, let's break those down a little bit. Quality, that seems pretty straightforward.
Right.
You want your electrical work to be done right.
Especially in a city like New York.
Especially in a city like New York, a faulty wire could be a huge problem.
Oh, yeah.
But what about communication and value? How do those fit in?
I'd say communication is key in any business where you're providing a service.
Right.
But in electrical contracting, it's especially important because you're dealing with clients who may not really understand the technical stuff. You have to be able to explain things clearly and make sure everyone's on the same page.
Yeah.
And when it comes to value, I think it's more than just offering a competitive price. It's about coming up with solutions that are tailored to the client's needs,
Right.
whether it's a house renovation or a big commercial project.
And, based on Daven Electric's success, they're definitely doing something right.
Oh, yeah.
They've gone from a small company in New York City to being licensed in a bunch of different states.
Wow.
New Jersey, Colorado, Texas, even Washington, D.C. That's pretty impressive for a company that started out in such a tough market.
Yeah, that suggests they've figured out how to be successful in a way that goes beyond just being good at what they do.
Yeah.
They're clearly meeting a demand and building a reputation for being reliable and doing quality work. And that's what's allowed them to grow like that.
Okay, so we know David Lavender had a unique background and a clear vision, but let's get into the specifics of what Daven Electric actually does. I mean, they don't just change light bulbs, do they?
No, they do not just change light bulbs.
What do they do?
Their services are surprisingly varied. They work on residential, commercial, and even things like data centers and mission-critical systems.
Wow. Okay, let's start with residential. What kind of work are they doing in that area and what makes it unique?
They seem to specialize in multifamily units, like co-ops and condos, which anyone who's lived in New York City knows come with their own set of electrical challenges. I mean, imagine the wiring in a building with hundreds of apartments, all with different needs, and people using electricity at different times.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that sounds like a logistical nightmare. So what kind of specific services do they actually offer in those buildings?
Well, they handle things like service capacity increases, making sure the building has enough power for everyone. They install new risers, which are basically the vertical pathways for all the electrical wiring. And of course, they deal with panel changes, upgrading those old electrical panels that you often find in older buildings.
So they're not just fixing problems, they're actually upgrading things to stop problems before they start.
Exactly.
That's got to be really important in New York City,
Especially,
where so many of the buildings are, super old.
it's about keeping everyone safe and making sure the electrical systems that so many people rely on every single day are working properly. And it takes a lot of knowledge to do that, both about the technical side of things and also the unique problems that come with working in a city like New York.
Now, we know they do commercial work too. How is that different from the residential stuff?
Well, commercial projects can be anything from a small office to a giant store, a warehouse, you name it. And each of those places has its own specific electrical needs and safety concerns.
Right, like the lighting in a department store is going to be way different than what you need in a factory.
Exactly. And then you have things like restaurant kitchens and server rooms. They all have totally different power requirements.
And then you have the whole world of data centers and mission-critical systems, which just sounds incredibly complicated.
Oh, absolutely. Those places need to be running 24/7. They can't afford any downtime. We're talking about the electrical systems that keep our entire digital world going, servers, networks, the whole thing.
Wow, so Daven Electric handles everything from apartment wiring to the systems that power our online lives. It's pretty amazing to think that one company can be experts in so many different things. But we're not done yet. We have to talk about their incredible client list.
Right. That's where you really see how good their reputation is. They've worked with some huge names in construction. Companies like Alexander Wolf and Son, Bechtel, Manhattan Construction Group.
Wow, those are the companies behind some of the most famous buildings and infrastructure projects in the country.
Exactly.
And it's not just construction companies. They've also got major retailers on their client list. Target, Gucci, Old Navy, Banana Republic, Burlington. Plus, they've done work for hotels like Hilton Garden Inn, Hyatt Union Square, Holiday Inn, and the Warwick Hotel.
And let's not forget about property managers and building owners like Brookdale Senior Living, Hersha Hospitality, and VC Realty. Oh, and their work with telecommunications and data centers, including giants like AT&T, Verizon, Sprint, Spectrum, and Time Warner.
It's crazy how many different types of clients they have. They've really made a name for themselves as the go-to company for electrical contracting across so many different industries.
It shows that they're not just a one-trick pony, you know? They can adjust their expertise to fit the needs of all kinds of different clients and industries, which means they're versatile and committed to providing the best solution, not just doing the same thing every time. It's not just about installing wires. It's about understanding the bigger picture and how the electrical system fits into the overall function of a building or a business.
That's a great point. It's like they're not just electricians, they're problem solvers.
Exactly.
And speaking of problem solvers, they also offer a service that's really helpful for people in New York City, ECB violation removal.
Ah, yeah. The fun of dealing with New York City building codes. For those who don't know, ECB violations are basically notices from the Department of Buildings when a property doesn't follow those codes. And let me tell you, getting those violations cleared up can be a real pain.
So Daven Electric comes in and helps people clear those violations. That's got to be super valuable, especially for anyone who's ever dealt with the Department of Buildings.
Oh, yeah, it's a bureaucratic maze.
It shows they really understand those codes and can work with both their clients and the city to make sure everything is done right. It's not just about fixing the problem. It's about navigating all the rules and regulations.
Aye.
And we can't forget their focus on safety. They're fully licensed and bonded with a $30 million bonding capacity. That's a big deal, especially in a field where safety is so important.
Absolutely. It means they take responsibility seriously, both for their employees and for the people who live and work in the places they service. It gives people peace of mind, knowing that the work is done to the highest standards and the company is financially stable enough to handle any problems that might come up.
Okay, we've covered a lot in this first part of our deep dive. We've talked about David Lavender's unusual career path, the principles behind Daven Electric Corp, and all the different services they offer. Plus, we got to look at their impressive client list and their commitment to following the rules and staying safe. But there's still more to explore. What's next?
Well, I think in the next part, we should take a closer look at how they expanded outside of New York and what challenges and opportunities come with working in multiple states. Plus, I'm curious to hear about David Lavender's long-term vision for Daven Electric Corp and how they plan to stay ahead in an industry that's constantly changing.
Sounds like a plan. We'll be right back after a quick break to continue our deep dive into the world of David Lavender and Daven Electric Corp. We're back and ready to keep going with our deep dive into Daven Electric Corp. Before the break, we were talking about how they've expanded way beyond New York City. They're licensed in so many states now, which is really impressive for a company that started in such a competitive market.
It really shows how ambitious they are and how well they can adapt. Moving into new markets comes with a whole bunch of new challenges, like figuring out different building codes and regulations
Right.
and making connections with suppliers and contractors in each area.
Yeah, and we can't forget about just the logistics of managing projects in multiple states at the same time.
Right.
It's one thing to handle a renovation in Manhattan, but something totally different to coordinate a big commercial project in, say, Colorado or Texas.
Absolutely. You need a really strong infrastructure and a deep understanding of how each market works differently. Like the climate is different, the way things are built is different.
Right.
Even just finding skilled workers can be different in each place. Daven Electric has clearly found a way to deal with these challenges and still keep their standards high, even with all these different locations.
What I find really interesting is that they've managed to grow like this and still stick to those core principles we talked about earlier: quality, communication, and value. It would be so easy to let those things slip as you get bigger, but they seem to have made them even more important.
Yeah, I think that says a lot about how strong their company culture is.
Yeah.
Those principles aren't just something they put on their website.
Right.
They're part of how Daven Electric does business no matter where they are.
Mm.
And I think that consistency is a big reason why they're so successful.
Makes you wonder how they've managed to do that. Is it through like really intense training programs or maybe a management structure that gives a lot of power to the local teams?
Hmm.
Or maybe it's even simpler than that. Maybe it's just good communication and everyone in the company feeling like they're working toward the same goals.
Probably a mix of all of that. Building a company culture that can grow with you is not easy, but Daven Electric seems to have figured it out.
Yeah, they really do. But let's change gears a little bit and talk about David Lavender's long-term vision for the company. We know he's not the type of person to just sit back and relax. What do you think he sees for the future of Daven Electric?
Well, he comes from a finance background, so I'd imagine he's always on the lookout for ways to grow and do new things.
Right.
And the electrical contracting industry, it's definitely ready for some big changes, especially with things like smart technology and everyone wanting to be more energy efficient.
Oh, absolutely. We're seeing all these traditional electrical systems merging with cutting-edge technology, from smart homes that can control everything to massive energy storage systems.
Yeah.
Daven Electric is in a great position to take advantage of all of this, especially with their experience in both residential and commercial projects.
Yeah.
Imagine like a world where your electrical system knows what you need and adjusts the lights and temperature based on your schedule.
Right.
Or buildings that can create their own power using solar panels and manage their energy usage in real time so they don't waste anything.
That's not just some futuristic dream. That stuff is happening now.
It is.
And companies like Daven Electric are leading the way in bringing those technologies into our homes and businesses. It's a really exciting time to be in this industry. They have the potential to completely change how we live and work.
And it's not just about technology either. Sustainability is becoming so important for both the planet and our wallets. I'm interested to see how Daven Electric incorporates those ideas into their work.
Yeah, I think it fits in perfectly with their focus on value. Sustainable solutions usually end up saving clients money over the long term, whether it's by using less energy or making electrical systems last longer. It's a win-win for everyone.
It's so clear that Daven Electric is more than your typical electrical contractor. They're embracing new ideas, adapting to the changing market, and really establishing themselves as leaders in an industry that's changing all the time. It makes you wonder what other businesses can learn from how they do things.
I think there are a few key things. First, how important it is to have a strong company culture that can grow with you. Second, being open to new ideas and new technology.
Right.
And third, remembering to always put the customer first and focusing on solving their problems, not just doing the bare minimum.
Those are great insights, and I'm sure people listening will find them really valuable. But let's go back to David Lavender for a second. What do you think his story tells us about what success really means and how important it is to follow what you're passionate about?
I think it's a great example of how success doesn't always follow a straight line. And sometimes the most fulfilling path is the one you make for yourself. Lavender could have easily stayed on Wall Street and kept moving up in the corporate world.
Yeah, he could have.
But he chose to follow his passion and build something he truly believed in. And that decision has definitely paid off for him, both personally and professionally.
It's a really inspiring story, and it makes you wonder what other unexpected paths to success are out there just waiting to be discovered. Maybe it's time for all of us to look at our own careers and ask ourselves if we're really doing what we love.
That's a great question to think about. Sometimes all it takes is a little leap of faith to reach your full potential. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves.
Right.
We still have more to uncover in our deep dive into Daven Electric Corp. What's next?
Well, we've talked about what the company does in general, but I think it's time to dig a little deeper into the specifics of their services in each area: residential, commercial, and data center and mission critical systems. I want to find out more about the unique challenges and opportunities they face in each of those sectors.
That's a great idea. Let's get into the nuts and bolts of their work and see how they use their expertise to meet the needs of their clients.
All right, let's do it. We're about to get into the real details of electrical contracting.
Okay, so let's get back to the specifics of what Daven Electric actually does. We talked about their work in residential, commercial, and data center and mission-critical systems, but now let's really get into the details.
Okay, sounds good.
Let's start with residential, because I think that's what most people listening are familiar with. Like we mentioned before, they specialize in multifamily units, which are kind of a different animal in the electrical world.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially in New York City, with all the old buildings and so many people living close together. Can you imagine the electrical needs of a building with like hundreds of apartments? All those people using electricity in different ways and at different times?
That's definitely a lot to handle.
It's a huge challenge, and it seems like Daven Electric has really figured it out.
Yeah.
They do everything from increasing the service capacity to installing new risers and changing out those old electrical panels, making sure those buildings have enough power to keep everything running smoothly.
Right. It might sound like basic stuff, but when you're dealing with a whole building full of people, the stakes are a lot higher.
Oh, yeah.
Like if a fuse blows in a house, it's an inconvenience, but in a high-rise, it could affect tons of people.
Exactly. And that's where Daven Electric's commitment to quality and safety really matters. They know how important their work is, and they do everything they can to make sure those electrical systems are reliable and meet all the codes.
It's like they're not just electricians. They're protecting the city's power grid, making sure everyone in New York has electricity.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay, but let's move on to their commercial work, which is just as impressive in how much they do and how complicated it can be. They've worked on projects for all kinds of businesses, from tiny stores to giant warehouses and office buildings.
Right, and every single one of those spaces needs something different when it comes to electricity.
Exactly. Like, think about the lighting in a department store versus a factory, or how much power a restaurant kitchen needs compared to a room full of computer servers.
It's a whole different ballgame for each one. And Daven Electric seems to have the knowledge to handle it all. They get how important electricity is for a business to succeed, and they work really closely with their clients to figure out what they need and find the best solutions.
It's like they're not just installing wires, they're building the backbone that lets businesses grow and do new things.
That's a great way to think about it.
And then there's all the work they do with data centers and mission-critical systems, which takes things to a whole other level of complicated.
Oh, yeah. Those are the places that keep our digital world going, and if they go down even for a little bit, it can cause huge problems.
Right. Think about what would happen if the servers at a big bank crashed, or if a data center went offline and shut down communication networks. It's not an exaggeration to say that Daven Electric is a big part of keeping our modern world connected.
They're like the behind-the-scenes heroes of the internet, making sure all that information keeps flowing and all those systems we use every day stay up and running. And their expertise in that area is really amazing. They design and install backup power systems, make sure everything is grounded correctly, and even deal with how to keep things from overheating.
It's honestly mind-blowing how much precision and knowledge it takes to keep those systems going 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
It shows just how dedicated they are to quality and how well they understand all the technical details involved. They're not just electricians. They're problem solvers, they're innovators, and they're keeping our entire digital world running.
So, as we finish up this deep dive into David Lavender and Daven Electric Corp, what are the big takeaways for our listeners? What can they learn from this incredible story?
Well, I think there are a few really important lessons. First, your career doesn't have to follow a traditional path. Sometimes the most fulfilling path is the one you make for yourself. Second, success often comes from being passionate about what you do, working hard, and always striving for excellence. And third, even something that seems ordinary like electrical contracting can actually be full of innovation and complexity and can have a huge impact on everyone's lives.
It's a good reminder that there's always more to the story than you see at first glance, and if you dig a little deeper, you can find all kinds of surprising insights and inspiration. Who knew that talking about electrical contracting would lead to such interesting conclusions?
That's what's so great about exploring, isn't it? There's always something new to learn, a different way of looking at things, a new connection to be made. And that's what we're all about here on the Deep Dive.
Absolutely. And with that, we've reached the end of our journey into the fascinating world of David Lavender and Daven Electric Corp. We hope you've enjoyed it and maybe even learned a little something about how important electricity is and the people who keep it flowing.
And until we meet again, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and never let that spark of curiosity fade away.
Thanks for joining us, everyone.